Hello, everybody. Welcome to a special presentation tonight with Maile Shannon and Scott Crawford from the Maui Nui Makai Network. They will be sharing how the network is connecting communities for a healthy land and sea of tomorrow. We're all very excited that you're here. My name is Akola Lindsay, your MC, your guest MC this evening. I'm a board member of the Maui Nui Marine Resource Council, and I sit on many other various boards doing all kinds of cool stuff, along with these people who are going to be presenting this evening. Tonight's presentation is part of the Maui Nui Marine Resource Council's monthly Know Your Ocean Speaker Series, and they're usually held on the first Wednesday of each month at 5:30 via Zoom. Maui Nui Marine Resource Council is celebrating 14 years of working for clean ocean water, healthy coral reefs, and abundant native fish. 14 years, back when we were real young. This monthly series is supported by County of Maui Office of Climate Change, Resiliency, and Sustainability. Mahalo to you guys for supporting us. We really appreciate it. A few things before we get going. You notice that your microphone is on mute. Please keep it on mute during the presentation to avoid distractions. We invite you to submit questions using the questions button on the lower edge of your screen. We'll leave time at the end of the presentation to answer your questions. And now it is my pleasure to introduce our presenters. Maile Shannon has been involved in aina-based work since 1999, formerly as a farmer, rancher. And since 2009, as a conservationist, both working and volunteering, she raised her children, Marcus, Shannon, and Hunter, in the nonprofit world. In turn, it has afforded her the wonderful opportunity to serve her community on boards and as a founding member of the Maui Nui Makai Network and multiple NGOs. She's a current chair of the network. And that was kind of a lot. Basically, she is really good at what she does, and she does a lot of different things. Mahalo for all that you do, Maile. Our other presenter is Scott Crawford. He served as the executive director of Kipahulu Ohana for 20 years, helping to manage Kapahu Living Farm, traditional wetland taro farm, Kipahulu Kitchen community certified kitchen, the Malami program, including the Opihi Rest Area, and the proposed Kipahulu Moku community-based subsistence fishing area. That's a tongue twister. He serves on the board of the Hana chapter of Hawaii Farmers Union United and is the administrative manager of the Hana Farmers Market. He also serves as the chair for the board of Ke Ao Hali, the Save Hana Coast. He's secretary for Na Mamo O Mu'olea and is trustee for the Hana Cultural Center. He's currently secretary for the Maui Nui Makai Network. And in his spare time, he works. So thank you for joining us, everybody. I look forward to hearing from Maile and Scott for a wonderful presentation. Take it away, Maile.
Aloha mai kako. As we put up our slides here, weaving the net, how we are connecting communities for a healthy land and sea of tomorrow. Next slide, please. Of course, myself and Scott presenting this evening. And then, of course, a picture of the hui on Lanai a couple of years ago, of course, prior to COVID. And our current members, which I'm not saying are hui malama o mo'omomi, kahonua momona, mauna lea ahupua CMMA, pola nui hiu, wailuku CMMA, Na Mamo O Na Mamo O Mu'olea, and Kipahulu Ohana. And of course, we have our Koko'o and Haumana members. Next slide.
Thanks, Maile.
Okay. I'm missing a slide. Sorry, Scott. So let me say one thing before I go ahead and let you take over. For all of you, my apologies. Our mission is to connect communities across Maui Nui to care for and restore healthy ecosystems on which Hawaii people depend. Our purpose is to share and learn from our diverse experiences, lessons, and best practices to help member sites Malama to care for in specific Makai seaward areas. Our vision is to see our relationship restored to both land and sea as we reach across communities and generations to enhance our strength through diversity, we envision that the land and the sea are healthy and productive, and our actions are consistent with Ahupua'a Ridge to Reef stewards practices and supported by the best of scientific insight. Go ahead, Scott. Mahalo.
All right, thanks, Maile, and thanks, Ekolu, for the introduction, and to the council for hosting us and giving us the opportunity to share about the work of the network. The network was started in February of 2013 after community leaders from across Maui Nui came together and asked, do we want to form a network so we can connect and share lessons learned with each other? And worked with the Nature Conservancy in the beginning, especially as one of our founding supporting members who helped facilitate those early days. And we, let's see, have nine community groups, 4 supporting organizations, and then have done many different trainings and workshops and things like that over the time since we've been formed. And I did want to back up 1 second too and just mention that, you know, when I was realizing that it's been 14 years now in Ekolu's introduction that the council was formed back in, at that time, Mo'olea had just begun doing our Makai work, and Robin Newbold called me up and asked if we could just get together and sort of talk about marine conservation and what we could do. And so we met at the Down to Earth and had a conversation, and there was a couple other people there, and forgive me, I can't remember who it was at this time, but that was a long time ago. So it's great now to like reflect back on how far all of our organizations have come, and to think back on those like early days when it was just a conversation, and it was, you know, we were all just like trying to figure it out and sort of, you know, how do we organize ourselves to make a difference on this, you know, on these important issues that we all are concerned about, and to see how all of our organizations in our communities and how the network and the council have grown over the years and become very effective at actually doing really important work is heartening. Sometimes we're in the midst of it, we kind of don't realize how much progress we have made. And it, you know, this gave me a chance to reflect back on those very early days when we were just getting involved with this and how we've all grown together. So hopefully, you know, that's some inspiration to just keep going forward and realize that it's, you know, individuals can make a difference when we get together and we have a vision and we, you know, and we work towards it. Network was in 2010 to 2012, we started doing some train the trainer workshops, and that the network sort of grew out of that. And then in KNI, we got together in KNI in 2012 and had a meeting where we talked about, like, do we want to actually form the network, and what would that look like? What, you know, what's the benefits of it? What would the commitment be for each of the organizations? And then we decided at that meeting, let's do it. Let's form a network. Let's get together, hooey up together and support each other in this work. And so then on February 2013 was when we actually signed the formal agreement of the community 6 original community organizations to officially form the network. Maile?
Okay, so as you can see, at that time, once we formed the network, you can see of the couple of times that we met and during the train of trainers here. And then we came up with basically Pai Pai o Ola, which is, you know, basically how we move as a network. And like our bonds are strong. As you can see, the various community members and the, of course, different generations in what we do as we move forward. Next slide, Scott.
So we'll just go through and highlight each of the communities that's part of the network, and without just reading the whole slide. Mu'olea is sort of between Hana and Kipahulu, and among other things, we've set up a voluntary Opihi Rest Area. We have done regularly Opihi monitoring, developed along with Kipahulu and the Opihi partnership, developed a Opihi survey method, and we have scholarships, and we have sponsored the Limu Festival every year, which is kind of had been on hold the last couple of years, but we're sort of reformatting that for moving forward, and look forward to sharing that with you coming up in August.
Okay, and Wailuku Ahupua CMA. Of course, as you can see here, we have keiki fishing camps in the past, and for us, our focal point is the harbor area, the FMA, and that's what we work in with very different stakeholders, which is kind of a challenge compared to others. We have both, you know, private, nonprofit, county, state, federal, and such. So, you know, one of the ways that we could give back was to work with the hales there and the VA programs to be able to educate the children in pono fishing practices. Next.
Kipahulu Ohana. Kipahulu is on the southwest part of Maui. It's very remote, and so the people there live a very self-sufficient lifestyle and depend on their ocean resources. Kipahulu Ohana has Kapahu Living Farm, which is a traditional wetland taro farm, and we also established a Opihi Rest Area along the shoreline adjacent to Haleakala National Park, and we're in the process of proposing that Kipahulu Moku be designated as a community-based subsistence fishing area. I'll share a little bit more about that later on.
Okay, and Pola Nui Hugh, located on French Street in Lahaina. Kolu, who of course opened us up this evening, and his Ohana for many generations had cared for this area and thought it was very important to monitor the reef and the fish population. Of course, the coral heads that are right out in front of the home, the water quality, and of course to engage the community on all levels. Those both in Lahaina and those out of Lahaina, Kolu and his Ohana are very active on a daily basis in engaging with the community and with the students and multi-generationally. So yes, next slide, please.
Hui Malama O Mu'olea is on the north shore of Molokai, and this is where Uncle Mac teaches the next generation how to sustain their coastline through traditional management so they can keep their icebox well stocked for generations. And I'm sure everybody knows Uncle Mac is somebody who we all look up to as such a model and just a wealth of knowledge and you know, a big inspiration why we're all doing this work in the first place. So next one.
Okay, yeah, Maunale Ahupua CMMA. This is located on the island of Lanai. It is right across from Lahaina, right? This community has, of course, many issues, specifically erosion by the overgrazing of ungulates, and had tried to decide and come up with a plan on how they could save their reefs, how to educate on subsistence fishing practices. And this area is an area that has a lot of kuleana lands. And as most people know, most of the island is not owned by the kuleana. So they have various issues to deal with, but this is just a little kipuka of an area that they were able to malama in Maunale. Next slide, please.
And Kahonua Momona is our most recent member that's joined the network as the network expands, and works on Molokai managing the fish pond and working to be a model of sustainability, Mauka to Makai, and how the mountain and the ocean interact and feed the people.
Okay, so how Mana members, we just added in 2021 and 22, we're welcoming 2 new that we just had up here and sign on, Ke Ao Hali and Na Moku Aupuni o Kaulau Po'oko, Ko'olau Hui, excuse me, that's in Ke'anai. And they have just signed on with us. So we look forward to their addition to the network. Next slide, please.
And just a little bit, how Mana members is kind of like a transitional membership for new organizations that are coming in to just have a chance to get to know the network a little bit and make sure that they, that they know what they're getting into and really meet the commitment of all the, the meetings and the engagement that it takes for the communities to be able to make it all work. So we look forward to them being full members of the network at our next meeting, hopefully this coming up this fall. The Kaka'o members, we have 4 Kaka'o members, which is Coral Reef Alliance, Nature Conservancy, Aina Ulua Wamo, and the Maui Nui Marine Resource Council. And the Kaka'o members provide support in many different ways, facilitation, technical, scientific, and they don't vote in the decisions of the network, but otherwise they're an integral part of the network's activities and successes. And we wouldn't be where we are without them.
Exactly. So a couple of years ago, we started, and finally put it into implementation, the Malama Ike Kai Community Action Guide, as you can see here. And this is a guide that we have sent out to several communities and anyone that was wanted, to, of course, see the process. It was a process that, we had gone through ourselves as train the trainers and able to be able to utilize basically a method or a process for others to go through. And as you can see, the steps, O'mau Kau Kau, to prepare for action. And step 2 is Ho'oma'a, which is to understand your place. Step 3 is Ho'ola'a, Lala, making your plan. And step 4, Makahana Ka'ike, learning by doing. And we're able to share these processes like with those 2 Haumana members. And we have a couple of more on the way, hopefully, that it can utilize this guide in order to Malama Ike Kai. Next slide, please.
And this is just kind of another version of those 4 aspects or steps in the process that the guide is organized into. And all of this was developed through the work of the communities who went through doing, community action plans or conservation action plans and developed this process through our own experience, and, then came up with something that we thought could be helpful for other communities to be able to, develop their own plans in their own areas, and tried to make sort of a pathway for others to follow.
Okay, so as you can see here, just to show the preparing for action, the Ho'omau Kau Kau, and you go through these steps, as Scott has mentioned, in something that we had, of course, gone through ourselves and tried to come up with when we did our CAPs and how we could help others. And, it took some time in the network for a bit for us to try to, it's a living, breathing document. And, there are things that we've already shared with other communities along with other entities on how to facilitate and prepare for action. And this is just step 1. As you can see, in step 1, there is a lot that needs to be done. But, the more you engage and work in the process, the better you're able to move through the process into step 2. Next slide, please.
And the second step in the process, the first step is sort of about gathering information and sort of setting your, just doing ka'apunis and mapping and projects or mapping exercises and things like that provide just a foundation of information. And each step sort of builds on what you do in the step before. So then in this ho'oma'ama'a step is understanding your place, about choosing priorities and geographic scope, identifying and ranking your problems, analyzing the situation. This exercise that's shown here is like a problem tree analysis. That's a really useful way to just think through causes and effects, and where you can sort of intervene in the situation to make the biggest difference in the desired outcome, and then setting goals. Next slide.
Okay, so ho'ola'ala'a, making your plan. As you can see, we got pretty, we had a fun time doing most of these things, and using resources like the sand in the first one, just to be able to map things out in a larger picture. So, you know, the strategic plans, the objectives and the actions, what's the governance and the management of the process in your plan, assumptions and expectations, because a lot of times right now you have the key stakeholders you're hoping to engage in this process, but it also doesn't mean that other people don't have their own assumptions and expectations of how this process is going to work, right? You build capacity, and what are the strengths and the needs of your community. You monitor what that plan is that you came up with. And then of course you work the plan. And as you can see on the right, you know, what do you have in your toolbox to be able to work that plan? And there are very many different types of things that people wouldn't consider in a toolbox. But as you can see, the handwritten list there, but you know, you speak about species management, and you talk about law and policy, enforcement, and what are the economic incentives for it. So, you know, it is a very engaging process, but nonetheless, it helps you focus on what your intent and your goals are in order to achieve this. Next slide, please.
And then the fourth step is makahanakaike, learning by doing, which is actually putting the plan into action and learning and adapting as you actually put it to work, communicating effectively, sharing the plan out with your community, and getting, you know, the broader community involved and engaged. And then also celebrating your achievements and successes, and continuing to stay connected as you move from sort of planning into the actual implementation and action. Although part of the important aspect of this is that you don't wait until the plan is done to be taking action either. It's not like we're sitting around just, you know, we got to get, you know, spend all this time going through all these workshops to get something, you know, and then we're going to implement it. There's a lot of something that I've always emphasized, and has been our own experience in Mo'olea and Kipahulu, is that it's really important to actually be doing things along the way, so that people feel engaged and feel like there's something tangible that's happening at the same time. And that's a way to actually bring people into the planning process. So, you know, you can be implementing aspects of it or steps of it, like biological monitoring, or, you know, different kind of things that build at the same time as you're working towards developing the overall plan that guides you for, you know, for the future. Next slide.
Okay, so as you can see, besides, of course, engaging our own communities and wearing the many different hats that we do, we had the opportunity to speak at HCC in 2017 and engage other conservationists and stakeholders, and share, of course, what we were doing in Maui Nui, and be able to give feedback. As you can see, Scott there is, you know, and also Kolu. They're helping engage everybody else in a process of how we, you know, and what we do and how we came up with this Malama Ike Kai. This is part of the process before we even got to where we're at. So it helped us get feedback and also to be able to ascertain what our goals were as a network and how we could move forward.
Yeah,
Next
this
slide,
workshop
please.
at the Hawaii Conservation Conference kind of provided an opportunity for for us to do sort of a mini version of certain steps in the process and try them out on, you know, on participants there and get some feedback about what worked. So that was part of our development of the process, was having this sort of real hands-on interactive workshop. And we got great feedback that it was a lot more, people got a lot more value out of this than, I guess, you know, a lot of what happens at HCC is presentations and people sitting in a room watching somebody give them information. And this was a really interactive, you know, participatory workshop. So we got great feedback on that aspect of it. So that helped us have confidence that we were on the right track in developing our Malami Kekai plan.
Okay, so East Maui
this
Malami Kekai. Go ahead, Scott.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
This one is when the sort of the next stage is we took that that plan to East Maui and did a workshop series. And this was the first one where we brought together, this was in 2018, I believe, September 2018, we brought together different communities throughout East Maui and took them through a little bit more sort of day-long version of some of the steps in the plan, just to get, you know, kind of work it out and get their feedback. And again, we got really great response. People really valued it and felt like it was the kind of like guidance and sort of framework for what they had wanted to do, but sort of didn't know where to start. And so it was a great, you know, first step in the process of working with the East Maui communities in something that's grown since then, over, you know, many more workshops and engaging with the individual communities, and helped us develop the next phase of the plan, or the guide, I should say. Okay, next slide.
Oh, okay, go back one, please, Karen. Okay, yeah, just more pictures of more workshops that we continue to do. And as you can see, a lot of the people that we have in here are the additional communities that have just joined us. So it was a process that went years before they joined us in 2021 and 2022. So it was almost a 3-year process before they became Mana members. Next slide, please.
It might have been a little faster if we didn't have a pandemic in the middle of that.
Absolutely, I agree with you.
And actually, I think, you know, this is the East Maui Ho'omau, or Maui Hikina Kako, that we came up with as a collective process of all of the East Maui communities who are participating in this. And it's such a powerful statement. I think I want to read it, or maybe I can read half and then Maile can read half, because it's just, I think it's just really powerful. And whenever we share this, it just kind of reminds us, like, you know, this is why we're doing the work and what we all have in common here. So, O Maui Hikina Kako, we are East Maui. Ko'olau Hana, Kipahulu Kaupo, we work together to honor our kupuna, future generations, and lahui. We strive for a life rooted in sustainability, ensuring an abundance of resources. We protect and preserve our community's traditions.
From Mauka to Makai, our forests, streams, and ocean are full of life that feeds and empowers our families. As one Ohana, we celebrate our others' commonalities and differences, committed to learn, share, and support all our efforts to Malama Aina. Unified, we are stronger, more efficient, knowledgeable, compassionate, and resilient. In this, we honor our Ha, O Maui Hikina Kako, we are East Maui. Next slide, please. Okay, so the Maui Hikina Hulia Mahi process, which we were kind of speaking about, we utilized our guide in order to support this process. And these villages between Ko'olau and Kaupo, which would, of course, for those of you that don't know, is the Keanai side, all the way through East Maui. And we've had them where they've met a couple of days. We've showed them, we've used the Malama Kekai process. We've shared our CAP process for the different communities that have gone through a CAP process. And then in this enables us and gives us the ability to meet and to share and to compare, contrast, and create a common plan, which they would eventually, submit to the state. And it's interesting because you get your shareholders in there, and I give our supporting agency of TNC a lot of the credit here, because they are the facilitators when it comes to this, and other of our, of course, community members. But when they get there and we're trying to get everybody on the same page and try to take all those ideas and map them out, and I mean the dozens and dozens of handwritten sticky notes, the post-it, the large presentation post-it notes, and all of that data and everything. And during this process, they're of course trying to figure out what their goals are, what are they looking at, and it's a place. Sometimes what's the species? Are we talking about Opihi, or are we talking about water, or we talk about ocean, water and Opihi, and it goes on, and it engages people. And as you see, the light bulb there it's definitely a light bulb moment. And we're always very blessed to be in the room when these community members are engaged and they are trying to figure out their process and what is important to them, and more importantly, where do they want to be, and in what timing. And timing is of essence, and no matter what work we do, and what we're doing in the Makai process, and of course Maka in that sense. So next slide, please.
And actually, before we go on to the next one, just to reflect a little bit more on the Maui Hikina Huliamahi process, and what we've been going through is, this is really true of all our communities, is just, it's easy to sort of feel isolated and within each community, and sort of not know where to start, or not know how you can make a difference. And especially in East Maui, all the different communities have their own, issues and their own politics and their own, stories and all of that. But they also have so much in common of the challenges that they're facing, and the road, and the over tourism, and, all these things that everybody has in common. And so there's so much power in banding together and supporting each other, and feeling like we're not in it alone, and that we're working through a process together where we can support each other, and we can see how we're each part of a bigger picture. And that's, I think, what a lot of people feel every time we go to a network gathering and get together, is just that inspiration of feeling like we're part of such a bigger picture, and we're all working together. And now what we're really talking about is kind of taking these community level plans that each community is working on in their area, and then how can we bridge those together. And I have to give credit to Uncle John Lin too, who has for me been a real inspiration in kind of planting this seed with me, and saying, how can we work to get, it's all the families are all connected all across East Maui. And how can we work across the region to bring people together and be stronger, and now working on actually developing a regional plan that we can, that all the communities can sort of come together and think as a whole, 4 or 5 mokus across the east side of the island. So, all right, next slide. And in Kipahulu, one of the things that we've been working on for about 10 years now, we first developed our CAP in 2012. And one of the things that we identified within that was to designate Kipahulu Moku as a community-based subsistence fishing area. And we chose that sort of management area because it's the one that really involves community engagement in the process, and is based on traditional practices. And it's about not just sort of the biology and ecology of the place, but it's about traditional lifestyles of the Hawaiian families who have been there for generations, and how the relationship with the resources and with nature, we have to manage the resources in a way that the lifestyle is able to be sustained. So That's really at the heart of like a community-based subsistence fishing area. And so we've been working on this plan for 10 years now, going through the process, gathering input from fishermen, coming up with our own proposal for what we want to, the specific rules that we want to put in place for Kipahulu, and then gathering input from other fishermen and everything, and just trying to do outreach and have let people understand the reasons behind the rules that we're proposing. And we're finally at a stage in the process where we're close to actually going into the formal, Chapter 91 rulemaking process. So this coming next week, Tuesday, June 7th, we have a public scoping meeting with DAR, where they're going to be seeking input on the specific proposals in our CBSFA plan. So I'd like to invite everybody to join us for that. And, at our website, kipahulu.org/CBSFA, you can get a lot more background information and see the specific proposal and rules package that we're putting forward for Kipahulu Moku.
Okay, so if you'd like to find out more information about Maui Nui Makai Network, you're welcome to visit our website at mauinui.net. You can also download our Malama Ike Kai action guide, community action guide, and of course contact us. We continue to work, and of course had a conversation right before this presentation about engaging in capacity building of more communities throughout Maui Nui. And we will be blessed to present at the Hawaii Conservation Conference this year again, along with other panelists and cool. So as I guess the engaging question that we leave for you here is, this is our vision for the future, and where do we go from here? Mahalo to our funders. Mahalo, Scott.
And with that, we can, I think, open it up for questions. If anybody or comments or whatever, talk story.
Mahalo, Maile and Scott, for a wonderful presentation. At this time, we are open for some questions. Put it in the chat. If you're on Facebook Live, put them on there too. We'll be alerted and be sure to answer your questions. And while I wait for a few questions that may pop up, I do want to make an observation. If you have noticed the slides, one of the first things you may have noticed was a lot of kids working. Every community is working on succession, right? If we don't share this information with the next generation and make it fun for them, the point where they're learning without even knowing that they're learning, to carry on that Ike, that knowledge, that cultural and scientific knowledge, and learning to bridge those together, we're going to be in trouble. So all of us is doing something really cool. And for those of you who are in there listening and would like to participate, each one of the organizations through the Maui Nui Makai Network does have volunteer opportunities, especially if you want to go and do some Opihi monitoring. That is pretty cool to do. If you don't know what Opihi is, you should definitely join in for some monitoring and learn how to eat that stuff. So one of the questions that pops up is, where do we get our funding? So I think on that last slide, if you want to pull that up, like most of the organizations, the funding is always through grants. And that's one of the hardest things. We love unrestricted funding. We love for somebody to write a check for $100,000, and it hasn't happened yet, but it might, to help every one of the organizations. So even as a network, we are, we take care of our own business, but each organization has their own kuleana as well. So, sometimes we find ourselves competing for the same grant, but we like to share. One of the things that Scott was alluding to was each one of us work in our own silos, but we found out by working together and supporting each other, we get a lot more work done. So that's been very enthusiasm. The synergy created from that has been just amazing. Every time we go to these meetings, it's just you leave with a little buzz going on, like, man, I'm going to do more. Comment came up from Anita. Mahalo for the presentation. Such an awesome, important work. I think we should have networks like this, for all our islands. Any thoughts or efforts in hosting training events, opportunities for other islands to kind of teach or lead the way and how they can form their own network? Maile, you want to answer that?
Yes, that's primarily why we came up with the Malama Ike Kai guide. We originally started this network. We spoke about the larger effort in all of Hawaii, right? And the Lahui as a whole. And at one point we spoke about a name that would include the entire archipelago, but then we knew we had to start with the low-hanging fruit in order for us to be able to to achieve those goals, right? So we share that Malama Ike Kai, as we said, the guide, we can download it. There are other networks, if you have noticed, along with our supporting agencies, there are other networks. There are, I think, there are 5 of us that are on a larger network, which is Ealapu, which is part of Kua, which is one of our alakai, Kua Aina Ulu Oamo. We also, some of our communities are on that network also. So yeah, we're willing to help, and that's why we came up with the guide, and you're willing to download it. And if, of course, contact us on the website if there's any way that we can help facilitate that process.
Thank you, Maile. Scott, follow up?
Yeah, thanks, Ekolu. There is a network. There are other networks on other islands too that are similar, and there's one on Hawaii Island called Kaikuliana, and we're actually planning to do an exchange with them in August to have some of us go over there and learn about what their work and share about our work. So, that's part of I think the power of this overall is like each community working. It's the only way we're really going to solve these problems on a large scale is by each community working in their own area, but then joining together in these networks and combining our forces, and regionally within Maui Nui, and then within the Hawaii Islands, and then within the Pacific. And always learning from each other. So we're looking forward to going over to West Hawaii in August and learning from them about what they're doing over there.
Thank you, Scott. Karin put in the chat that, just reiterating what you just stated, Karin, that Maui Nui Makai Network is planning a learning exchange with similar groups in West Hawaii, with the Kaikuliana network. And these informational exchanges really helps us identify successes and failures, and to really look at what's been done and make it better. For instance, these East Maui cohorts that we've been working on, if we're successful in this modeling and this village concepts of identifying stakeholders and the problems, and looking at the identifying similar problems throughout the region, and if we're successful at implementing these solutions, you can repeat this elsewhere. So I look forward to having this as a model and being very successful here in East Maui first, and then take it to the world if we can. Let's do something really awesome. So we need to start in our own backyards. Any other questions out there? Please put it in the chat or the Q&A. Well,
another thought that kind of goes along with that too is just the idea that it's the importance of communities on the ground level being proactive and taking responsibility for their own areas, because we can't just wait for the state or other agencies to figure out how to solve these problems for us, so it's the solutions of effective governance of our resources, Mauka to Makai, are only going to come through the people of that area, taking responsibility, getting involved. And then, you know, another really important part of it too is that it's rooted in the traditions of that place and in the families who have a generational connection with that place, and the knowledge that comes with that generational connection that is, you know, indigenous science. And all of our efforts, we try to really ground in place and in the, you know, Huayna practitioners of that place, and then supplement and support that with Western science and, you know, sort of Western monitoring techniques and things like that, but always making sure that we're really honoring and starting from the place of the traditional knowledge of the area.
Thank you, Scott. Maile, any last words before we close up?
I just want to mahalo those for attending the presentation this evening and your support of both Maui Nui Marine Resource Council and Maui Nui Makai Network. Mahalo nui.
All right, let's see. Mr. Deco's put something in the chat. Amazing work you're all doing. The network has come a long way. Mahalo for making a difference. We also got a link in there for Kipahulu. Check those links out. Check out the website. So, and I thank you both again for your time and telling us about the Maui Nui Makai Network and how you're engaging communities around Maui County to protect their resources. And to our audience, you know, I know it's that time for eating dinner and spending time with the kids, but mahalo for being holding on a couple more minutes with us. Thank you for attending the Maui Nui Marine Resource Council's Know Your Ocean Speaker Series. And again, it's sponsored by the County of Maui Office of Climate Change, Resiliency, and Sustainability. Maui Nui Marine Resource Council is a nonprofit celebrating 14 years of working for clean ocean water, healthy coral reefs, and an abundance of native fish for the islands of Maui Nui. Our next Know Your Ocean Speaker Series event will take place on Wednesday, July 6th at 5:30 p.m. via Zoom. We'll be hosting Paul Sturm. I hope I said his name right. But he's an awesome scientist, and he's the director of Ridge to Reefs. Ecological restoration and that kind of work. You want to listen to this, guys. It's very inspiring. To hear about signing up for this talk and learn about our future presentations, please sign up for our free subscription to our monthly e-newsletter, Reef and Brief at mauireefs.org. We welcome you to enjoy a signature guided chocolate tasting while also giving back to your community. Join us for a 9-piece chocolate tasting at the Maui Ku'ia Estate Chocolate Factory in Lahaina. For your chocolate aficionados, oh, that bugger is ono. All proceeds from this tour will benefit Maui Nui Marine Resource Council. Check out the website to register. Since the 1970s, the coral reefs in Mo'olea Bay have degraded so severely that Hawaii's Division of Aquatic Resources has described the situation as a case study in total system collapse. I'll say that one more time, total system collapse. That's our fault. It's a people problem. What can Maui County residents and visitors do to save Mo'olea's reefs? Learn about the steps that are proposed and the actions that have been taken at an online Rally for the Reefs webinar to be held Thursday, June 16th at 5:30 p.m. via Zoom. One more time, June 16th, 5:30. Admission is free, but you need to reserve your space. So check out the website on that. Rally for the Reefs will feature presentations by Stuart Coleman and State Representative Angus McKelvey. You can also support Huyoko Vai'ola by adopting your favorite beach for water quality testing or by becoming a trained water quality sampling volunteer. If you guys love water, you got to know what's in your water, so learn how to sample those things. This community-based water quality monitoring program launched and conducted by Maui Nui Marine Resource Council, the Nature Conservancy, and West Maui Ridge to Reefs Initiative in partnership with the State of Hawaii Department of Health Clean Water Branch. It tests ocean water quality every 3 weeks at 29 locations in South and West Maui. So that's 17 sampling sessions every year at our sites. And that's super important so we can identify the many challenges that exist in our water. Yeah. If you need a last minute gift for someone who loves the ocean, send one of our beautiful tribute e-cards in their name when you donate $10 or more to support Maui Nui Marine Resource Council's work for the clean ocean water and healthy coral reefs. Card will be sent via email instantly with your custom message. We offer cards for birthdays, anniversaries, graduations, and other special occasions. Visit mauireefs.org/membership and giving. When you donate to the Maui Nui Marine Resource Council, you also be supporting our work to improve the ocean water quality at Mo'olea Bay. To really understand that, you guys need to go swimming over there and find out what the problems are. Projects include our oyster bioremediation project, which has caged oysters in the bay, filtering sediment and other pollutants out of the water. We're also stabilizing the slopes of the Poha Ke Ao watershed to prevent sediment runoff by planting vetiver grass, which is a non-spreading, deep-rooted drought and fire-resistant plant that keeps soil from washing into the ocean during rainstorms. If you don't know where Poha Ke Ao is, it's right up above the slopes in Mo'olea. If you've missed some or all of tonight's presentations, you'll be able to view it on Facebook Live, on our Maui Nui Marine Resource Council Facebook page. It will be posted on our YouTube channel, Maui Reefs. Mahalo to our corporate sponsor. You can see the name up there because I don't know how to say Vitalitea Hawaii. And last but not least, we want to thank our sponsors and supporters who are making our work possible. And we also wish to thank individual donors like you. Mahalo for making a difference. Thank you all for joining us. Have a wonderful evening. Aloha.